Because I use the analogy, it's like, it's like when this herd of this colony of penguins, and if you're an eagle in that colony, you're always going to fall short. You're going to be the worst penguin. Like, you can't do anything right, and you just don't fit in, and you feel horrible. But if you realize you're an eagle, then you can find your wings.
Welcome back to the Balance Boldly podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm your host, Naketa Ren Thigpen, the #1 balance and relationship advisor in the world, here to make sure that you get every single balance, work, life, and love, parentheses people, and love tool that you can use to make sure that you grow your life and your business with joy and intimacy. Notice that I deepened my energy when I say "and intimacy" because it's so important. I am not just talking about, nor am I excluding, physical intimacy. I'm talking about all of intimacy, 360 degrees, making sure that you have room and space to grow these magnificent businesses that you guys are creating, and you can have fun and enjoy the process. Yes, you might be swinging from some chandeliers when you have a 20-minute lunch break. I'm hoping it's taking you a little bit longer than 20 minutes. It's okay if it isn't. And making sure you have some space to play with your family, your nieces, your nephews, and if you happen to have little G people like I do, the grandbabies, then making room for those too. That's why I'm excited to bring to you this beautiful royal blue soul. I'm saying that because she is rocking this royal blue outfit right now. You guys can't see it, but I have the privilege to do so. Welcome to Ms. Madeleine MacRae, former corporate consultant and now a business growth strategist. She has helped over 15,000 people hit the next stage of their growth, whether it's their first million in revenue or 5 million or more. Why did she decide to do this? I'm hoping she'll tell us a little bit more as soon as we get started, but I'm just going to assume once she had that bundle of joy in her belly brewing on her maternity leave, she decided, you know what? I got all this knowledge, all this amazing skill. I am pretty dang on dope if I do say so myself. So why not create some more time and freedom to raise my bambino? Madeleine, welcome to the Balance Boldly podcast. How are you today?
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And you are rocking this royal blue, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm loving it. I would love for you to share with everyone just a little bit more about how you're helping all these businesses, the 15,000 plus at this point. I'm sure that number has grown over the last year or so, with all of the ways that they're navigating those growth pains, so you can help them shape more efficient systems and processes so they can grow their businesses and, dare I say, balance boldly.
Yeah, Balancing Boldly I love the name of your podcast. I love your mission, because it is not about 50-50. It is not about, that is not equal 100 in our world. Entrepreneurial life does not give you that, right? You can't say, did I get 30% here and 30% here and 30% here and use that leftover 1% for something? It just doesn't look like that, right? Balance,
right.
In my perspective, looks like sometimes 99% one. Sometimes that's what it looks like.
True.
But in the end, you just want to feel joyful. So I primarily help business owners in the home improvement space, and even niche down even more. We actually focus on shading. So all the things that keep you cool, not HVAC, not that sort of cool, but like the shading from windows, doors, window coverings, screens, awnings, those sort of things. So we help those business owners really run more effective businesses by, first of all, understanding where they stand and mastering their own skills and delegating effectively. A lot of our peeps are really bold, bright, ambitious go-getters, and not necessarily educated in the school systems with their degrees and their postdocs and all those things, but they've learned the School of Hard Knocks. So I take their School of Hard Knocks knowledge, all their trade expertise, and I shape it up with a little bit of business acumen and send them on their way.
Oh, I love that. So your gift is in polishing and providing some really efficient shade to the people who provide the shade. I love that.
That is what I do. Exactly that. Yep.
No, I love it. So what made you decide, besides what I said when we were doing our introduction, what made you really decide to take that bold step for yourself because you are not new to business, clearly
No,
coming
not at all.
your
Yeah.
expertise. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what made you decide to be bold and courageous enough to step out on your own?
I had never considered owning my own business when I was younger. But I never saw any examples of that when I was a kid. And I never really considered it for myself. So I took had a job and then got a corporate job. And I climbed the corporate ladder. It was really super fun. But for me, when I got to the top of the corporate ladder, and the next role for me would have been CEO if I would have
Yeah.
stayed, I wasn't ready for a CEO role of $100 million organization, wasn't quite there yet. And I saw all these smart business owners working really, 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 really hard at the wrong things.
Yeah.
And then I saw all these really powerful corporate executives show up to these organizations and just, they were like ships crossing in the night. They just were missing each other. And I knew that I could be kind of a stopgap to help the corporate teams and the business owners meet in the middle a little bit more effectively. And so
Yeah.
I knew I had more to give. And I'm sure deep down inside, there was something about having a child that made me both be a little more cautious, but also be bolder to say, what example am I giving to my son? And so
Yeah.
with no business doing it, I just started my own business. I just jumped right
No,
up. Yep.
no, I love it. You literally, and this is going to feel like a little bit of a pun for the super niche that you have, but you
Mm-hmm.
literally hung out your own shingle
I
and
did.
decided to back it up with your business acumen, your expertise, and your
Mm-hmm.
drive to do something more efficient and
Yes.
better.
Yep. Yep. And to help people, right? I saw so many business owners who were just, on the edge of burnout, going through divorces because they never made
Come
time for
on.
their families. Yep. Or maybe alienating relationships with their children, because when you have a business, it's like having another child, right? It's a lot of work and you pour your soul into it. And I knew that if they just changed a few things about how they operated, that didn't have to be their permanent reality. And they didn't need to risk their families and risk their joy and risk their long-term happiness in order to chase success.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I align with that for so much of what we do and the work that we do in our personal development company for power
Mm-hmm.
couples. Because a lot of the challenges they're having is because they were creating these wildly successful businesses, some with and some without having people like you behind them to really help
Mm-hmm.
them be more efficient. And it was exhausting. They are excited that they were able to do their dream work, right? Their life
Yeah.
work, but they weren't able to prioritize their family in the process.
Yes.
And that's usually where we come in on that end, is to help them
Mm-hmm.
reprioritize and create the same or better joy in their marriage that they've been trying to create in their business. So I totally
Love it.
relate to that, and I respect it
Love it.
on so
Love it.
many levels. So I'm I would dare say a professional digital stalker, like professionally, of course, right? And I came across, because I was, professionally digital stalking you for our due diligence for the show, and all the good stuff. Because we vet our people. You came across, with flying colors, with no problem, and an interview that you did. Somewhere it was posted in the early spring, like, maybe March or so of this year. So who knows when you actually recorded it. But you said something I found really awesome and relatable. You said quite a few things, quite honestly. But one that stuck out the most was, you said, I'm trying to not misquote you, but I'm pulling off of my 40-plus-year-old brain here, which is magnificent for all of you who are questioning those of us who are over 40. But you said something about you grew up feeling other. And I think you even said, like, I grew up feeling really other. And then you kind of explained different, because you didn't necessarily grow up from a historical branch of other entrepreneurs to lead and guide you. So I'm curious for you, as you're creating more time and more freedom for your life, and as a boy mom, and really going all the way in with making sure that you show up fully for yourself, and also provide modeling for him and all the future hims that will come after him, not just through your body, but cousins and all the things.
Sure.
What has that been like for you, to be in that space where you're literally creating from scratch on so many levels, because you don't have personal models that you can lean into? Like, how has that been for you across your journey?
The first thing that I did is I invested in a coach, right? I invested in someone who was already this had achieved the level of success to which I aspired, or at least I felt could propel me that way. And I don't always have a coach, right? Even though I myself am a business coach, I don't always have one. But when I feel I'm ready to up level,
Yeah.
when what I've been doing is no longer serving, or it's not enough to get me to where I want to go, I generally look for someone who is a couple stages ahead of me. I'm really consciously aware that we do our best work with people who are a few stages below or a few stages above us. When they're too high, when we perceive them to be too high above us or too low below us in terms of their progression of life, not as though anyone's beneath you, not that, but
Yeah.
just
I
progression,
understand.
right? Then you have a hard time if you choose a mentor who's so much further above you. What I have found myself doing is I'm trying to please them. I'm trying to be worthy. I'm trying to show up so that so that I can feel like they approve. And that actually doesn't give me the freedom to express where I need to go next. So I always look for a mentor who is just a couple stages before me, but someone who sparks me, because I am a profoundly verbal processor. I need to talk it out. And when I do, it's like brilliance, brilliance, brilliance. And I cannot achieve that when I am locked in my own brain. For
Yeah.
me, journaling is like into the pit of despair, right? I'll have a perfectly good day and then I'll journal about it. And you think like I ended up somewhere horrific because I just spiraled down. It is not beneficial to me.
Yeah.
And I've had so many people encourage me, oh, journal it out, journal it out. That puts me into like a tangled web of nonsense, like just doesn't help. I need to speak it out. I need to let it out of my soul. I need to get it out of my body. And words are my jam. I love words.
Yeah.
I love vocabulary. And when I can use them and play with it, it gives shape to my thoughts in a way that that just really is empowering. So I find someone who is able to unlock that lock for me.
Yeah.
And that's the secret sauce for me, is finding a really powerful thought partner who I can jam with, right? Because sometimes it's not the advice that they give, it's the space they create. And that is so much what I need, right? Just that powerful space where they don't hero worship me, right?
Yeah.
They,
Yes.
girl, you're cool, but let's all be cool. Like and if you're working with someone who's not at your level or a few stages above you, they end up hero worshiping your success. And to me, that's profoundly disempowering, because when you're put on a pedestal, where can you go from there?
Absolutely.
So
1,000%.
that's how I started. And that journey of otherness has been really interesting to notice. So thank you for noticing it in that interview. I actually wrote a little children's story, which I'm about to drop on Kickstarter next month.
Yes, we need to add that link in the show notes. Thank you.
Yes. Whenever we're ready to rock with it, we definitely will. It's called The Unusual Penguin, and it's about a little penguin mommy. It's narrated by her, who comes across this beautiful egg, and she takes it and raises it as her own. And her little penguin boy is so different than all the other penguins. And it turns out, do you want a spoiler alert?
Yes, please. You see, you can see me on the edge of my seat, right?
I really want to know what happens next. It turns out he's the most horrible penguin. He's not good at any penguin things. He doesn't belong. He doesn't look like the other penguins. He doesn't like the other things. And but he's a joyful spirit, and he starts to feel compressed. And it's only when he sees another eagle soaring overhead and is inspired to take flight that he discovers who he is and finds joy.
I love this.
The colony celebrates with him because they all knew he was an unusual penguin. And when they realize he's actually an eagle, they all have joy.
I love this so much. This is like all of my kids.
Yes. I actually wrote it for my son. I was telling that I felt unusual as a kid to a couple of my girlfriends. How do we make sure that we have a good tribe? My good girlfriends. And 3 years ago, they told me, because I use the analogy, it's like, it's like when this herd of this colony of penguins, and if you're an eagle in that colony, you're always going to fall short. Yeah. You're going to be the worst penguin. Like, you can't do anything right, and you just don't fit in, and you feel horrible. But if you realize you're an eagle, then you can find your wings,
No,
right?
I
And
love this.
they said, why don't you write that into a little story? And so I did. And my first draft, my son rejected because he was traumatized by my first draft because the eagle just flew away. And he's like, but what about his mommy? Does he still love his mommy? And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot write a children's story that the child at the end is like abandoned.
Like, peace out.
Right? So I redid it. And now he comes back, and the very last scene in the book is this mommy penguin's igloo. So she has this little igloo with an eagle's nest on the top. And they're holding hands. She's through the window and he's in his nest, and they're holding their little wings together so that he comes back to his mommy, does not abandon his family.
No, I love how your son is like, no, failure, and you've received feedback. How about that? Yes. Right? Like, talk about business acumen, because that's a huge issue. And I know you weren't going that deep in the children's book because you made it age appropriate, but for adults that learn a lot from reading children's books, because God knows there's so much to like the Moana movie. Like, for entrepreneurs, if you look at it through an entrepreneur's eyes, there's so much in that, right? But as you were saying, and I'm like, oh, your son was like, no, failed, and this is feedback, do it again.
Yeah, that's right.
And you did it. You didn't just say like, oh, he doesn't accept it, I'm the worst mom in the world.
No, and I've been reading it to him as we go along. Like, I read some little parts, and first it started written in prose, and then it kind of jammed into poetry, and then it ended in prose again. And when he made that critique, I couldn't make it work. It took me a long time. It's been 3 years in the works. It took me a long time to figure out how to do it. And what changed is when I made the mommy the narrator, and I turned the whole thing into this big, beautiful poem. It came together. It took some time, right? I am an excellence seeker. I do all things at excellence level. I don't like to be mediocre. In school it was like A's or nothing. It wasn't like A's and B's. No, B's weren't a thing, right? Like, B's weren't a thing on my report card. That was pretty much the equivalent of an F in my paradigm. Not that that's neither here nor there, but it's really, really well written poetry. And so for like a smart 6-year-old, someone who's bright, and I don't talk down to the kids, right? I use grown up language. I use big words. I use fun vocabulary. I use powerful rhymes. And it would be good for parents to read too, because it tells a really empowering story. Sometimes when you feel like you're just that unusual penguin, right? When you don't fit in, it's not you that's wrong. It's the environment. You have to look around and say, okay, where else could I lean into? Which goes right back to the heart of my entrepreneurial journey. Find your tribe and find a good mentor.
No, I love this. And you're from, I come from the clinical space, and from the clinical space, we're taught to meet people where they are. And what you're doing with the, spoiler that you're giving us for the book is you're meeting the kids where they are in their exploration of self. And if they're feeling disconnected, or they're curious about what it means to not automatically fit in when they're feeling a little other, like the other penguin, you're meeting them, but you're also bringing them forward. You're not just staying there. You're helping them grow by not using little people words, right? By giving them other vocabulary and other ways of seeing, thinking, and feeling. Yeah. Honestly.
Yep.
No.
There's a line in the poem that says, when you're expected to be something you're not, it makes you feel small. It sure hurts a lot. And I just want them to understand that sometimes that expectation of others on you is for you to change who you are. And that hurts. And it's okay to hurt about it, but you don't need to stay in the hurt space. There's space beyond it. There's a space of joy. There's a space of belonging. And that to me is just such an important message. So I'm going to be a published children's author here soon. So that's added to my credentials.
Yes, I'm like, you heard it here first.
That's
on the
right.
Podcast.
I really haven't announced it publicly, so I think this is like a you heard it here first, right? Pretty cool.
This is super awesome. Okay, so I have to ask you, when you are not writing amazing children's books, which give adult lessons as well for us to grow into as well, and not helping thousands of people really close the gap in their space with the way that you do it, especially in the super niche shading space that you're doing it. when you're not doing that and being really invested in all of the boy mom duties that have you occupied, including this morning, right? Like right before we got started.
Yep.
Mommy has to go to work. You need 30
right.
minutes, right?
Right.
Which I love so much for so many reasons. How are you giving yourself permission to pause?
So my permission to pause shows up in a lot of ways. The first way in which it shows up is that I change the timeline on my dreams sometimes, because I'm a bold, ambitious person, right? I love to push the gas pedal in my business and be like, that doesn't serve my family, right? That has not served my family purposes. And I've had to say, all that badness, girl, you got this, all good, and not now, right? So I give myself space to pause by shifting some of the timeline on my bigger, more elevated goals so that I have more time to achieve them.
Yeah.
So I don't feel so scarce about the time. So I actually work less hours because I given myself more time to achieve. So that's a core and primary way in which I give myself permission is I give it at work because I know I'm all one person. And only on my mom, I'm a solo mom, right? So I need to make sure that I have given myself the time and space for that. And the other way in which I give myself permission to pause is I just take what I need at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, if I need a great bubble bath, I take it. If at the end of the day, I need to watch like mindless reality TV, that's what I do too, right? Whatever I need without judgment. I used to take it with judgment, like a nice pride helping of judgment. So there's a little guilt on the side. But now it's just no guilt. Like I'm tired, I'm done. My brain has no more waves to give. No more waves to give. And I take what I need at the end of each day on purpose so that I don't need a vacation from my life.
Oh, well said. Well said. So, because I couldn't help, I was trying not to grab them. I'm going to grab them and show you, but I'm not going to shake them for the audio. I'm normally with all my clients, I'm like, let's celebrate that.
I love that.
So I have to ask you now, how can people connect with you so they can get more of all that you're doing in the world and get that link for when the Kickstarter starts? And I know it'll be 2 separate links, but where can they come?
So definitely check out the show notes. That's the first and foremost, show notes. If you want to go to my website, it's mmacrae.com. And that's the best place to reach me. Of course, you'll have the social media links and all that in the show notes. That's fine too. My website, there's a simple contact form. If you're itching to have a chat with me, or you just dying to get access to that book, or you want to buy a zillion copies to give to others,
amen.
Check out my website. It will be updated with the link for my book.
You're a good business strategist. I'm listening to you, and she's like, and let me drop the seed. In case you want to buy 1,000 to give it to your local school.
That's right.
God knows they need them.
Heck,
okay.
Yes, they do. Yes.
Listen.
Pay it forward, my friends. Pay it forward.
Absolutely. I appreciate this so much. You have given such introspection into how we can look at children's books a little bit different. The stories, especially I won't say most, that's a big generalization. Many entrepreneurs, including myself, first partaker, definitely felt like the other, like the one that didn't fit in. And for some families, you're considered the black sheep, right? Like all the challenges that you have to navigate through that. And you writing this story and it adding value to even your current clients, quite frankly.
Yes.
I think it's such an added bonus. It's just a bonus gift that no one could have anticipated except for maybe your son, who clearly is the one running the family at this point. So.
Yeah, I'm a singer. I know my place.
I'm not mad at all. I do believe children should be spoiled. So I'm one of those people that are like, no, spoil those babies. Absolutely. Show them all the love. I'm one of those people. I really do appreciate you being here with us. It has been fantastic.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Balance Boldly listeners, okay. I wish I could do Cardi B style, but I'm not that gifted with the way that I roll my R's. Sorry, the okay that I gave you is the max that I can do. Do not judge me. And if you do, it's okay. Just make sure you subscribe and write a fantastic 5-star review and share this episode with everyone in your circle so we can make sure that they get not only the great balance tools that we're serving you up because you stayed to the end to listen to this, but that everything that our great experts like Miss MacRae has brought to you today. It has been fantastic. And what a bonus! You get to share with your kids, your nieces, your nephews, and your grandbabies too, if you happen to be part of the G Bunny fan club, right? All right. I appreciate you guys so much. As usual, to get any information you need, just check below in the show notes. I do not want to hear, Naketa, I was on my Peloton at the time that I listened to this. That's great. Pause it, bookmark it, and make sure you go and click the link so you can follow these experts because they are sharing such magnificent nuggets with their life, love, and balance that they are bringing to you before work, I might add, because they paused their life just for you so you can balance boldly. We'll see you next week.